Hello and welcome back to Rambling Reviews. I'm trying to. Ooh, let me move my laptop. I I need my laptop because I've got notes on it. But at the moment, I'm also rendering a video, so my laptop currently sounds like a Harrier jet. I'm hoping the mic is not picking that up. Anyway, yeah, Rambling Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the Cat's car, which is literally the cat's car, as in the car belonging to the cat we have met. For those who don't remember, although I'm sure you will, because this one is a doozy. Tulip is traveling from a dinosaur car, which is just a great joke. Like, they've had some great epic adventure. I'll never forget you. The door's shut, and she's like, I don't remember the dinosaur's name. Like, Mildred the dinosaur. No, Mildred the Tyrannosaur from the dinosaur car. The baseball-playing dinosaur car from the clip we got. Anyway, irrelevant. It's a good joke, but it's irrelevant to the story, to catch people up who don't recall. So this is the one where she goes into the cat's car, and she doesn't trust the cat, so she's moving on immediately, but the cat very conveniently drops a tape in front of her, and she's like, this is my name on it. And when she goes to watch it, she sort of gets sucked into a world built of her own memories, but either overly positive or overly negative versions, not quite accurate. So there's like really positive versions of interactions she had with her family. Like there's one where they're all sat around the table and it's her birthday, and like her dad's like congratulating her on being the best thing ever, and everyone's dead happy, and it looks all really unnatural, and they've got these big forced smiles, and it kind of glitches out. And later on, there's one where where her parents are telling her they're getting divorced, but everyone's being overly cruel. There's fire everywhere, so there's like all these exaggerated versions of it. Eventually, she gets covered in this static, and every time she finds the true memory, the static starts to recede. And it's about her finding the true memories, and we learn a little bit about our character before she then exits the dream state, which the cat was not expecting her to be able to do when she finally accepts what really happened. I'll go through the more details of those in a moment. And she just leaves, like, no, we're done. I'm done with the numbers. I'm done with you. I'm done with the train, caring what this train thinks of me, because that's what the numbers seem to be related to. I'm just done. I'm going. And she leaves out the front. And then the cat's car is immediately dragged to the front, where she's confronted by the steward, who basically wants to know where the passengers. She says that she's gone with the ball. The steward is not happy about this, and then we move on. So let's break it down. I mean, first of all, just in general, what a great episode. I've kind of hinted in previous ones that, obviously, that this is all going to be related to her. Well, I say I've hinted. I've said multiple times that it's very likely or possible that the numbers on her hands are related to her memories of the past. And I think in the earliest episode, one of my notes was, is it maybe that she needs to accept the past for what it is, or something along those lines, sort of hinting at this idea that maybe she's not quite remembering things as she should be, or as accurately as she should be. I definitely, that thought has certainly crossed my mind, and it's been kind of briefly talked about. I think particularly in I think it was the second episode that I mentioned that as a possible explanation for why her number keeps shifting. This one's really interesting. First of all, I don't understand what these tapes are at all. I mean, I'm confused, is where I'm at. I'm now backing away from my everyone is the conductor theory. I think it's... I mean... Yeah, there's... And I don't literally mean everyone's conductor. There's multiple people I've accused of being the conductor. I think if the cat was the conductor, she at the end of this episode wouldn't make any sense. The steward seems to very much terrify her, and I feel like the conductor's going to be in charge. Sad one and glad one. One themselves, I should say. Could still be theoretically, but I'm less confident now. It's possible now they're just more of a MacGuffin that works on or for the train, and they've gone malfunctioned, and therefore they're just wandering around the train instead of doing what their job is, whatever their job actually is. And looking for their mother. I think their mother might be the conductor. That's where I'm landing right now. Yeah, that's I think that's the most likely scenario I think that we'll see play out here. Obviously, listeners, you probably already know and can laugh at me in the comments safely as well, because I'll have recorded pretty much all of these before I start releasing them. at the rate I am going. So you won't have fear of spoiling me. I mean, the idea that the cars can move around in general is inexplicably distressing to me. So she comes out of the Tyrannosaurus car. She's about to step into another one. As she does, it separates. And at first I was like, oh my god, is the rest of the train just going to run ahead? Like, is she just stuck now with only what was behind her? And then suddenly another car slides across the top of all the cars and it slots into place. And that notion... Like, imagine this. She's in Corginia. She goes on her big adventure in there. That took a while, right? Imagine if the car had picked up at that point and zipped towards the back. She'd be starting again. That could have happened while she was in there, without her noticing. That is terrifying. Because theoretically, you may never get to the front now. Theoretically. But it all feels very deliberate. I'm not sure who moved the cat's car into her path, but if I was a betting man, I would say the steward did that. Cat didn't seem phased to see them, so I think she knew what was happening, but I don't think it was her plan, because it doesn't seem like she's got control of where her car moves to. It seems like the steward does. So I think the steward forced an interaction between the cat and our gang, Tulip, 1-1, and Atticus. So the cat's car is put in their path, essentially. When they step in, they don't realise obviously straight away whose car it is, but there are lots of really nice touches. There's laser pointers, there's balls of yarn. Someone says it's a study, and 1-1's like, what are they studying? Hoarding. There are photos of people on some of the walls. I was like, who are they? And there's one of like bananas with like these like sort of puffy, like coaly sort of chalk or like black monsters with eyes that look a little bit like the ones from My Neighbor Totoro. I don't know if that's like a intentional reference or if that's just more random background weirdness for the sake of it. I don't know. Kat does then reveal herself. If isn't my favourite person named after a flower for no good reason, even though she knows exactly what the reason was, and that is very specific. She does throw in a little French again, which I guess that's just like a weird character affectation rather than anything else. And when Tulip's originally like, yeah, I don't trust you at all, the cat's got a fair point, which is that actually the only person untrustworthy in this situation, technically speaking, is Tulip, who reneged on their last deal. The deal was very straightforward. But I do still also think that Tulip is very smart not to trust her, because while she hasn't been directly antagonistic, she's definitely... I mean, she was clearly scamming Randall. She's a suspicious character, full stop. So let's not take too much trusting from her. For like the third or fourth episode in a row, there's been a joke about no one having thumbs except for Tulip. And this is one of those things where when something happens more than a couple times, you start to go, okay, is this a joke? Or are they hinting that there's a very specific either reason for that, or they're going to do something specifically with that idea later on and they're setting it up? I'm not sure which. I don't know if there's like, I'm supposed to be properly realizing that maybe there's something significant to that, more significant than just the obvious that it means Tulip has weirdly more power in the world. So I'm not sure, but yeah, they made another joke about how no one but Tulip has thumbs. But yeah, she's smart not to trust the cat. She's immediately just like, I don't trust you, I'm getting out of here. And as she goes to leave, the cat knocks these kind of cassettes over. They don't look like... They look like a combination of video cassettes and like floppy disks. They're sort of like the dimensions of a floppy disk, but they're thicker, so they have actual tape in them. They're referred to as tapes, so I'll call them tapes from this point on, but they are kind of cassettes. The cat describes it... Well, she finds it, so the cat sort of like is like, oh, I guess you're leaving then. Okay, oh, clumsy me, I've knocked these over. Would you help me pick them up? I think that's where the thumbs joke comes in. And she goes to pick them up, and one of them has her name on it. Now, this is obviously intentional. Cat obviously planning something, and when it puts her into a trance, you get the impression that that was the goal, maybe so she could take 1-1. I guess that's the plan. She knew the tape would like trap her in her own memories, or false versions of them at least. She mentions every passenger has one, and Tulip reacts to that nowhere near as significantly as maybe she should. She does react. There's not no reaction, but there's less of a reaction than you think it would deserve. The idea that there are lots of... There are even a handful of other people on this train would be of note to me, since everything else that she's met has been either an inanimate... like a robot or a dinosaur or a monster or... just lots of beings uh, beyond just human beings. So she's not met any humanoids yet that I can think of. I guess you'd describe those crystal monsters as being humanoid. They had arms and legs and stuff. But yeah, besides the point. No actual humans. And certainly no one else that seems to have been pulled from our world, because that would be the interesting idea. It's like if you have two people in there who meet who are not from the same that are from the same world that are meeting together, that would prove that it isn't all just sort of directly to do with Tulip, and it's all in kind of in her head and designed for her, or that she's been sucked into some sort of game design thing she's done. It's hard to say where we're at this point. I still don't have any really concrete theories at all. Well, I really thought by episode 5 I'd have like so much like, oh, I think it's this, I think it's that. I don't. I'm really lost, and that's good. That's satisfying. I actually enjoy that. I think that's better. Like, I enjoy not being sure, and also knowing I'm just sort of watching these over the course of like a week or two. Just it's kind of like, I don't need to get to the bottom of it. You know, if I was watching these and they were airing sort of Steven Universe style with weeks or potentially months apart, like I'd maybe feel differently, and I'd be like overanalyzing, like give me the answers, and the hive mind of like Reddit or whatever and Discord would just like solve it, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense, and I wouldn't have the same satisfaction. So I'm enjoying doing it this way. I'm glad they kind of released it in this weird bomb format, and I'm glad they're doing seemingly the same thing for the second series. Anyway, so yeah, she does say other passengers, every passenger or something like that, but like, yeah, she noticed it. But they do only seem, and I did notice this, there only seem to be 6 tapes. So other passengers, maybe a very limited number of passengers, maybe just 6. I shrug. We do get other references. I've missed this, but earlier in the episode, one does make more references to the search for his mother. I found that, I mean, no more interesting than the last few times, but the fact they keep re-establishing that proves the importance of that. The cat says that everyone has a little number from a little tape, just like you, suggesting the tapes and the numbers are directly connected. Now, can we trust everything the cat says? Is that a lie to convince Tulip to actually play the tape by saying, hey, it's that number mystery that you're dying to get the solution to? Or is there actually a one-to-one connection between the tapes and the numbers? Again, unclear at this stage, but 6 of them could make somebody go, hey, there are multiple passengers on the train, maybe even 6 passengers on this train. Yeah, so that's where I'm. So Atticus, I think, rightly, is suspicious of the cat, and not just because he's a dog, but just in general. And he basically warns Tulip he's not sure about watching the tape, but she puts it in and immediately is pulled into her memories, and the episode just goes nuts from there. Let me see if I can break it down as best possible. The first one is like her as a baby pulling a Christmas tree over. Then it's like of her with her friend from the first episode, like having fun on the train. Her looking at the stars with her mother. In the car, singing "Word Up," a little hint to the moment we were told about in the last episode. And then Dolph World, which is one of my favorite things in the episode, is this Dolph World idea. So she remembers again. It's this microcosms of wider stories. So obviously she's seeing the events of her parents' divorce, but she's looking at them through the lens of she's looking at her life through a lens of a happy child, not seeing the signs of this divorce. She's not blocking them out, but just kind of, well, yeah, a little bit blocking them out, I guess. Like, her memories, she's just focusing on the positive side. So she remembers having a lot of fun at Dolph World. So the first thing you see in Dolph World is like the dolphins doing tricks and everything looks happy and shiny, and then like later on we realize it was just this really sad, dreary affair. And she's like, what? So the first time she sees, she goes, why did this close? This place was awesome. And the second time she's like, oh yeah. But also her parents are arguing, so that it's really clever, because obviously what the main important fact we're taking away from this is that her parents were always arguing. Her parents were never, it was never the happiest childhood. I'm not saying that she didn't have fun in those moments. I'm not saying she didn't enjoy Dolph World. I'm not saying she didn't enjoy singing Word Up with her family, but there's a strong possibility that when she was singing Word Up, maybe her parents were arguing, because later on we see in Dolph World, while she's enjoying the dolphins, the parents are arguing about, she's like, oh, I don't know if I can see it properly, and they're arguing about whether she needs glasses or not, or something like that. So that example of showing us Dolph World was a bit of a sad and miserable place in reality is just another example of showing us how her memories are being changed. So Tulip sort of goes, well, you know, I think she says something like, who's changing my memories? So she fixes onto that pretty quickly. This idea of who changes my memory, who's changing my memories, what's changing my memories. But obviously, towards the end of the episode, the arc of this is her realizing specifically that she's been doing that to maybe avoid dealing with how she feels about the divorce and other elements. So we get this one where she goes into the living room, and there's an amazing infomercial for the donut holer. Easy to grip and certainly not a scam, with Won-Won, who has hair in the most freaky visual ever, and Atticus on sort of like a humanoid body, both terrifying. But then, obviously, going through some of the happy memories she's not quite remembering correctly, she sees herself going into that living room, and it's an empty couch, and there's a muffled sound as if there's voices happening, but you can't quite hear them. And then that's where I knew that things were not as she's remembering them, because at that point all we've seen is happy memories. If I'm going chronologically through the episode, the good version of Dolph World, with her friend and her mum singing Word Up. So at that point, the turning point is this moment when there's flickering and we realise that there was someone on the couch, but we can't see them. Or at least I knew at that point straight away that we were maybe not seeing reality. And then we go to this overly happy one, where it's there's a great reference actually to Shigeru Miyamoto. Someone says, I think her dad says to her, "Who cares about?" It's like her birthday or something, and like this really overly happy one, and it's like, "Who cares about school? Step aside, Shigeru. You just became the Ultra Galactic World President of Game Design. Who wants to celebrate with double onion ice cream cake?" So again, onions. She loves onions. Onion ice cream cake. I mean, the Ultra Galactic World President of Game Design. It's obviously all too good and all too happy, and that's what hints to her that things are just not right. And then she starts, and it's at this moment she actually observes specifically, no, I don't accept this. This isn't how anything has happened. Something's changed my memories, and that's when the steward appears in the dream, and she gets covered in the static. So as long as she was willing to put up with the fake reality, she would have been in that trance, it seems, forever. But rejecting it in that moment, rejecting the false memory, showing growth is what gets her out of it, essentially, in the end, which is, I think, an important observation. So then we see the reality, which is the parents arguing at Dolph World, which is obviously much darker than she remembered. I've already talked about that. Then the real infomercial plays while she tucks her own dad in, who's sleeping on the couch, presumably after a fight. Then she sees the over-exaggerated version of the divorce I mentioned earlier. And at that point, it's over-exaggerated. There's fire everywhere. It's not what really happened. Her static actually gets worse. It had been recovering. Every time she saw a real memory, it receded slightly. But then she gets to this one, and it's like she's gone too far the other way now. She's no longer remembering things too happy. She's remembering things too dark. And then obviously she realizes what's going on again, that this isn't what happened either, and the static retreats because she starts to see the real thing, and she sees the real moment she found out about the divorce. What's nice about it is at first the fire doesn't go away, even though we're seeing the real scene, and then a few moments later the fire just vanishes between cuts in a really subtle, very nice little detail way. Yeah, the divorce scene is quite harsh, and like everything that follows this is like really quite heartbreaking, because you start to get the impression, or at least I am, not to be recapping this too much. There's so much happens in this episode. I feel like just reviewing it requires me to recap it a bit more, because otherwise I'm going to miss details. Maybe I shouldn't have been doing so much recapping. Lesson learned. We'll see. I don't know. The divorce thing is interesting because, okay, so looking at this from a wider perspective, it's possible that she's been blaming herself for this divorce internally. I mean, she makes a very clear point here that she, like, of course it's not my fault. They say something like that, it's nothing to do with you. She's like, yeah, I know, it's you guys. And she's all angry and stuff, but maybe I'm wondering if she's internalized that, which might be why she's sort of adjusting these memories. Maybe she does feel responsible. I know it's very common for kids to feel responsible when divorces happen. Like they feel like they put extra strain on a marriage because they were fine before I came along, and now they're they were a happy couple and they had a kid and now they're divorcing. That's usually how kids see it. Not usually. That's often how kids see it, which is a shame. It's obviously a tragically incorrect way to look at it. I mean, regardless of, the relationship was never going to, if it doesn't work, at a certain point, it's not going to work. It's just unfortunate timing. Like, it's not specific to that child's arrival. That's just not how kids see it in a lot of cases. So it's really heartbreaking to see her have to watch the moment she found out again, where she acted really angrily. But the good thing about the way this plays is she's in the memory watching herself, so she actually gets to walk over to herself, and she literally says, "I remember how scared I was, how mad I was," and then she adds, "how alone I felt." And that must be, I hadn't even thought of that. I guess from the perspective of a kid who's experiencing a divorce, you don't, your family unit that you probably get a lot of comfort out of when other stuff goes wrong. Someone upsets you at school, or some other thing goes wrong in your life. As a kid, you go to your parents, but when your parents are the problem, who do you go to? There is no one. Like, I can imagine somebody feeling very alone in that case. I really do think that they handled that brilliantly, and it's really interesting to see like how angry she got in the original version of events. I thought that was I thought it was fascinating. So I thought they handled all that really well. I mean, maybe the train is where someone goes when they just can't accept their past, because what gets her out of the trance is that is it. Accepting that as a memory. She even like quotes along with what's being said, and she says, "That's definitely what happened, but knowing it sure doesn't feel any better. I guess I was the one changing my memories." And that's the moment of realization that cures the static and gets her out of. So I think maybe this is another microcosm of a wider story. Okay, getting trapped in the tape is about accepting what really happened to get out, basically, and not letting the tape sort of like lead you down the path of those slightly more positive takes on things. And I think this is obviously I'm not talking that she literally, if you'd have asked her, she'd have been like, "No, everything's been great all of the time, forever." I don't think her memory's literally like that. I just think like you tend to put a positive spin on bad memories, and this is like a visual representation of that phenomenon. And seeing it play out, I thought it was really, really cool. And like I said, she ends by saying, that's definitely what happened, but knowing it sure doesn't feel any better. So, and I think that's a really important lesson for kids as well, is that like, okay, it's not going to make you feel better obviously it's not going to changing. It doesn't help, basically. It's not productive to falsify the memory, and you're not going to feel any better accepting it necessarily either, at least at first. But it is overall the best way forward. In the long run, it's better to accept it rather than to go through the misleading yourself thing. So maybe the train is where you go in general when you can't accept your past, or you're not viewing your past correctly. I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing an unusual amount of rambling this week, less coherent than usual. I know it's called Rambling Review, so that's totally acceptable. I know one can go in the comments and be like, "Hey, why are you rambling?" I'm like, "Hey, look at the title." But I feel like I'm extra rambly today, because this is one of those ones I watched this one 3 times before I reviewed it, because I just knew this review is going to be a mess, because my thoughts about this episode are just so in flux. And I think it's one of those things where it's really I'm going through the arc Tulip's going through, which is I'm trying to apply absolute logic to this, and I don't think that's going to end up being the case here. I'm starting to think it's not going to be about, oh, it definitely is this or it definitely is that. I think it's going to be slightly more open to interpretation, whereas I'm looking for solid rules and logic. And I think the word disappointed won't fit it really, but I will be. I think that's what's throwing me. I'm starting to try and train my brain to look at it differently. But when she gets out, she obviously correctly accuses the cat of trying to trap her. The cat is very clearly like surprised she's gotten out so quickly. She says she's done with the games. She's not interested in the number. The number seems to be going down. It stops on a number that you can only see part of. The last digit is 5, but then she puts her glove on. We never see the first digit. I think possibly it went up. The show wants me to think it went down. The cat says it went down. I don't trust the cat. And why else would you block it from view? I actually have a feeling it went up. Maybe. But she puts a glove on, we never find out. And she's like, I'm totally done with this. The cat does try to get her to sit back down and try again, because definitely wasn't part of the plan for her to escape that mind prison of memories that she'd created. She literally says the train must think you're doing well, referencing the numbers going down, and Tulip's response is brilliant, which is, oh wow, it's a good thing that my number's going down. I'm growing as a person. Thanks, train. I'm so glad an inanimate object likes me. And it's like, actually, you know what, as much as I don't like it when you're in that sort of like sarky moaning mode, you're absolutely correct here. She's like, no more numbers, no more mystery, and she leaves. And that's like, wow, what a great episode. Let's wrap it up. Let's go home, and then there's more. The cat's car jumps up out of the line of trains and shoots along what looks towards the front of the train, or toward not if the very front, towards the front, where she is confronted by, well, the steward and another ball-shaped robot. I'm thinking maybe the being 1-1 is calling Mother. I don't think this Mother thing is literally going to be Mother. By the way, I don't think it's actually going to be the parent of 1-1. I think it's going to be another related figure that 1-1 is confusedly calling Mother, like a boss. Maybe the conductor. So, and I'm saying it's ball shaped because it's basically all we see of it in this episode is like the red line of light, but it's got this curvature to it that make me think it's a round object. Maybe I could be wrong. I'm not planting a flag in that, just a possibility. But basically, they confront the cat, and she's like, and they're like, "Where's the passenger?" And she says she isn't exactly here at present, and she may have taken the ball with her. Again, emphasis on that the goal here is to reacquire 1-1. I say reacquire because I assume at 1.11 worked on the train properly and functioned normally. The tape, it should have trapped her. You know, I'm the only one who can help you find them. And then it's do not fail again. And then it destroys a bunch of her stuff, which made me feel sad. So it's you do kind of feel a little bit for Kat here. She's clearly sort of like an antagonist. I mean, she's not the most trustworthy character just in general. Obviously, they've made that clear. But it seems here the reason she's an antagonist is she's kind of being forced into it. She seems like the sort of person that's selfish enough to just look after herself and not really care too much about what happens to you. But she also wouldn't actively seek to screw you over just for the fun of it. But she's being, it's seemingly forced into her behavior here in terms of getting a hold of 1-1. So I felt bad for her when her stuff got destroyed. She seemed genuinely upset about that. I did also make a note that she picked up one of the tapes. So when the car is shooting towards the end, before the steward shows up and this other red light thing that beeps at her a couple of times as if it's dialogue, shrouded in darkness, she puts a tape that's on a shelf into her waistcoat before being confronted by the steward. So, I mean, I wondered whose tape that was. It doesn't seem to have been one of the ones that fell to the floor, so that's 7 tapes, I guess, now we know exist. Is that her own tape? Maybe? Is Kat not from the train? Like, originally? Is Kat another person? I actually, as well, on the subject of Kat, I noticed who her voice actress was this time. It's Captain Janeway. It's Kate Mulgrew, who I more recently know as having played Red on Orange is the New Black. It's really nice. I thought I recognised her voice the first time, and I forgot to actually double check the name. And I did this time and was like, oh, cool. That's exactly how I was hoping for it. But not, what is my brain doing? Not exactly how I was hoping for it to be. I was hoping it would be someone I knew, and it was someone I really like. So I was really excited to see that it was Kate Mulgrew. I'm glad she's continuing to do good work. She's good in everything she's in. So overall, I know this has gone on longer than usual, and it's extra rambly, but let's break it down. So, where am I at? Where do my thoughts land at the end of all this? I think the show has been intentionally giving us not contradicting information, but information that could hint at different stuff being the overall pause and goals here. So I think I'm reading into it too much like I've been doing. It's probably a mistake. Maybe. I don't feel like the world, when it's said and done, will necessarily have the strictest rules. Or maybe it will. I don't know. Because the number thing, there have been a number of times the numbers have gone down for different reasons. Like one time, I definitely clocked the time early on where it went down under circumstances that were nothing to do with like her thinking back to an old memory or anything like that. Because while that was my initial thought about what the numbers are to do with, so I genuinely don't know now, because we've seen it go down in all sorts of different circumstances. I'm worried that they're not going to have an answer that will explain all the examples, and I'll go back and be like, hey, it doesn't track. That would be my worry. But so far, so good. I mean, it's so open right now, and I'm still so confused, and I'm basking in and reveling in that. Like, it's so nice to just not have a clue. Again, I do have a lot of ideas, but whether any of those ideas are worth anything, I mean, flip a coin. Genuinely, like it's that up in the air what's going on with this. So yeah, I'm pleased actually, the way this show has played out so far. So yeah, thanks very much for watching and listening. Come back tomorrow. I'll have more of this as we build up to season 2. Where do I think it's going next? God knows, but I'm so excited to find out. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. I've been Dan Doolan. There's no Chris Billingham. But come back tomorrow as I discuss The Unfinished Car.